with you even for this short time. It in thinking about whether I was going to run or not, please believe me when I say that this committee in particular, this board, was one of the hardest to think about not being a part of. You all do such brilliant collaborative work, and it has been an honor to learn what I have. So I just wish to thank you all for allowing me to be a part. And just so you know, Holly, I am not going away. I will still be working, and actually, I think I'll be able to be more involved to some point. There's certain things you can't do from the dais, but so I will be around, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Avila.
Thank you, Holly. So I think I've been here more longer than most of you. Is there anybody that's been here with me from the beginning?
I have Sharon.
Sharon. Oh yeah, you have. That's for sure. Anyway, it was when I first got onto PPACG, it was really chaotic. And a shout out to Rick, right? Because Rick was holding down the fort. And but it was something else. And the people on, however, the board members on PPACG kept it together. Great group of board members, which I was able to get a lot of uh, information, support, and knowledge. But it was so exciting to interview Mr. Gunning. And he was just, for me, he was just rose to the top. Really excited to get him. I didn't know what happened before, but all I knew that going forward, we were doing really well. And Andy says that after the interview, I whispered in his ear, "You did great." And he goes, "I don't know if you told everybody that." I was like, "Nope, you were the only one because you were super." And so since then, so many great people have been on this board that have uplifted it, and I learned a lot from each and every one of you. So I really want to thank you. I know that I don't think we really had spirited debates, but we had, conversations, true and honest conversations from different perspectives. I had a much different perspective than a lot of you, but this is one of the boards that I stayed on the whole 8 years that I thought was so important to our region and brought so much to the table, especially transportation, but the environment and what's happening with our aging population. The work that's done here is amazing. But I'd like to really give a shout out. And I do want to take a picture like with Cheryl and Andy. Oh, I did with Andy. But Cheryl, I don't know if you'll stand up. Cheryl was so magnificent in supporting me in every which way, converting my all the materials so that I can hear it, readable. She was kind of ninja too. She's like, "Do you want some tea or do you want some coffee?" And she was just so wonderful. And so I so appreciate you, Cheryl. And really, because it's about the staff. I said this at City Hall yesterday, but that's the staff. We come and go, right? Like I'm leaving now, and but it's a staff that makes this clock tick, and I'm so grateful to each and every staff member. I mean, look at they think of things that's so thoughtful, and it's a staff person that does that. So I'm so appreciative to the PPACG staff. You guys rock, and I know you're going to support this next board. So each and every one of you, thank you, and I'm actually pretty excited to 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 go off and do some exciting things and hang out with my husband. And Puma's abandoned me again, but I'm sure I hope that you'll miss him lapping up his water during a meeting. And so that's that's it for now. Thank you all.
Okay, do we want to take a moment, Jared, and get a picture with Cheryl too?
I do.
Yep. And thank you, everybody. I'm going to give a round of applause.
Hey, God, get over here.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the Older Americans Month proclamation. Jody Barker.
Thank you.
Is that
Thank
Jody?
you,
I think,
Madam Chair.
go ahead, Jody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This month, actually in May, is Older Americans Month, and we wanted to celebrate with a proclamation from the Board of Directors. And so we have in line ready to read this out. Normally, I would be reading this out, but this time we've actually asked one of our Regional Advisory Council members and Town of Monument Council member Laura Cronick to read this into the record. And this year, the theme for Older Americans Month is Flip the Script on Aging, which ultimately encourages challenging stereotypes and embracing opportunities that come with aging, while also highlighting the contribution of older adults and promoting active engagement in our communities. And as you are no doubt well aware, just a lot of uncertainties around the Health and Human Services and Administration for Community Living changes coming at the federal level. But I want to assure our board of directors and staff that we continue to do the good work that we are doing across our community in our 3 counties. And so I would invite Laura Cronick now to take the time to read this proclamation into the record. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jo-
go ahead, Councilmember Chronic.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. This is a proclamation by the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors in support of Older Americans Month, May 2025, dated April 9th, 2025. Whereas May is Older Americans Month, a time for us to recognize and honor the Pikes Peak region older adults and their immense influence on every facet of American society. And whereas aging is about many things, but especially the accumulation of wisdom that allows older adults to challenge outdated stereotypes and live with vitality. And whereas the wisdom of older Americans is a significant contribution to our country, and whereas communities benefit when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds have the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas the contributions include a lifetime of experiences benefiting businesses, organizations, families, and friends, and whereas older adults themselves have time to engage or re-engage in the arts, adventure, work, and more, and whereas we all watch the seed that's been planted as it grows around the world, from the 101-year-old who finished the Toronto Waterfront Marathon to the 100-year-olds contributing to community in Colorado Springs, older adults say yes to life. And whereas the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments is an association of 3 counties and 13 municipalities representing the Pikes Peak region, and therefore be it resolved, excuse me, the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors proclaims May 2025 as Older Americans Month. This year's theme, Flip the Script, emphasizes the profound impact of meaningful interactions and social connection on the well-being and health of older adults and the communities they live in. Therefore, be it further resolved, we call upon all residents to join us in recognizing the contributions of our older citizens and promoting programs and activities that foster connection, recognition, respect, and support for older adults. resolved and approved and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments this 9th day of April, 2025 at Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay, is that a motion? Let's see. I guess we need a motion from a committee member to approve.
Mayor Dixon, I'll move we approve the proclamation in support of the Old Americans Month.
And Councilmember Avila is the second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, do we have any comments? The accumulated wisdom, I like that too. I keep telling my kids, just wait till you're 60. Well, I'm not 60 yet, but close. I wanted to say yesterday we had a presentation from the Colorado Sports Corporation, and there is a peak pickleball center at the Chapel Hills Mall. And they are having a huge summer games this year with people from all over the nation coming in to play pickleball. So that's quite a creative use of the old Chapel Hills Mall, and I guess it's quite the game. So we appreciate this very much. We'll get this signed, and thank you for preparing it. Let's go on to our next item, which is, let's see, our military installation reports. Jeff, did you want to go first?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair and the Board of Directors. Few items to brief. We had congressional representatives Jeff Crank and Tim Moore and 11 additional legislative staff members receive orientation to our space operations at Peterson, Schriever, and Cheyenne Mountain last month. This initial indoctrination was an educational opportunity for space operation missions, but also for our service members' quality of life and base infrastructure issues and challenges. Normally, I don't brief items on our geographically separated units, but this is an exception. Last month, Patufic Air Base Greenland hosted Vice President Vance, National Security Advisor Director Waltz, and Secretary of Energy Wright. This bears weight because the space base is operated and mission-wise and infrastructure-wise through the members at Space Base Delta 1 at Peterson. So your support is important for the missions at Thule or Patufic Air Base, Space Base Greenland. The Powers Airport Interchange Project continues as scheduled, and the support and communication from CDOT and the City of Colorado Springs is strong. We're looking forward to attending the Colorado Springs Open House event slated for next Wednesday that will discuss the Highway 24 Peterson Road Interchange Project. Looking forward to that as well. Our installation leadership is navigating the presidential directives. The Space Force mission of defending and maintaining unfettered access to space continues while personnel navigate their career options and changes to their work environment. Finally, we are still looking at hosting the State of the Bases address. We are still looking at a mid-May timeframe, but we have not nailed date down. As soon as we do get a date, I will make sure to pass that on to Mr. Gunning so everyone here gets the invitation to attend. Pending any questions, that's all I have to brief today.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with Colonel Daniel Warner from the Air Force Academy. Okay,
Hi,
there we go.
thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, really no updates from the Academy, but always appreciate the continued support out here. Next month, I'll provide a better update on graduation and who the speaker is and all the events going on with that. But as always, appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you. We anxiously await to hear who the speaker is, as always. Then we have two from Fort Carson. I'm going to go with Lieutenant Colonel Daniel.
I'll forego and hand over to Dave Tukmanian.
Okay, so now we have David Tukmanian from Fort Carson.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to address the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. So a few update items. One, I'm sorry that the Fort Carson team missed many of the folks probably in this meeting at the Association of Defense Communities Summit in DC. As many of you are aware, we're abiding by certain budgetary and travel restrictions that have recently been imposed, and that was just one event that we were not able to attend this year. So we certainly missed everyone, but we've spoken with several of the attendees regarding the next coming up in June. We have our installation planning board. And you can probably many of you can probably expect invitations to that. It's where we get our installation management command directorate readiness senior leader buy-in, as well as our senior mission commander buy-in for lots of projects, whether they be military construction or major strategic items. So you can look forward to some invitations to that, and we certainly hope to see you there. Next, our senior commander transition. You can expect that in probably June, we will change out Major General Doyle with a yet to be announced incoming division commander. So you may see invitations for that as well. Many of you also attended the Front Range Partnership and Strategy Summit that we held. I think last year was the 4th one. So 5 coming up. Last year we held it at the Olympic Training Center, if you remember that event. We plan on doing that the first week in November, so we hope to see you there. And then finally, we recently hosted the Undersecretary of Defense here on Fort Carson. So that was a great visit, and we got the opportunity to highlight how many of the initiatives are impacting for good or challenging for us here at Fort Carson. And so that was a great visit, and we appreciated the Undersecretary being in town. Madam Chair, that wraps it up for me. I appreciate your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? That was a great update. Thank you. Mayor Thompson.
Hi, this is Mayor Thompson. Good to talk to you again. I just want to let you know, we are really pleased and proud that our own John Trilch was elected to the board on that Association Defense Board, which is a national board. So he'll be a good representative for our area on that board.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor Thompson, we're super happy about that as well. So John Trilch and of course the City of Fountain in general are great partners for us here at Fort Carson, and having him represent the entire region at the Association of Defense Communities, which is really kind of a powerhouse amongst communities much like ours. Having him represent us there and be our voice, we're very excited about it. So thank you.
I just want to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Avila.
When I first started PPACG, the military reports weren't until the very end, and sometimes we weren't able to get to them. So I'm really grateful that we have them at the beginning, and how crucial hearing from our different military installations really is to this board. And just wanted to mention, I started kindergarten at Fort Carson. So I'm a military brat, and it's been a real part of my life. And I think that's what's driven me to want to serve on council as well as various boards. But they're so crucial, and I really appreciate the updates. And this time, they were kind of not a lot of updates before, so I hope that these robust updates continue.
Yes, we really appreciate the updates, because I think the military bases are so important to our community, and we love all of our veterans here and all of the military servicemen who are here. It makes up a big part of our economy and a big part of the spirit of our community. So thank you very much for those reports. Let's see what's next. Okay, now we can be moving on to our consent items. These items will be acted upon as a whole unless they are called up for discussion by a board member or a citizen wishing to address the board. Are there any questions on the consent items?
Move to approve the consent items as presented.
Second case.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Our action items, the first one is a legislative update with Jared Verner. And we've only got maybe 39 more days in the legislature. We're starting to count them down.
I know Ed
30.
keeps that number off the top of his head. So I will kind of kick things off by letting Ed and Jennifer give an update because they're the boots on the ground and can do an infinitely better job than I definitely can. So whoever wants to go first, Ed or Jennifer.
Good morning. This is Ed Bowditch. Thank you for the invitation to appear this morning. Today is day 92, so we have 28 days left in the legislative session as we march towards our May 7th adjournment. The big issue this week right now is the budget. It passed the Senate last week and it is up for consideration as we speak this morning and tomorrow in the House. It's a very tough budget year. There are lots of changes to the budget. We've talked about the reduction in senior services funding from 16 million down to 14 million. The Legislative Joint Budget Committee, in putting their budget together, made lots of other changes across all state agencies. Cuts anywhere they could reduce the budget, they did reduce the budget. So they'll be fighting about that this week and next week, and then back to the normal process of dealing with the 400 or so outstanding bills that are out there.
Hello.
We lost you for a minute.
I think
Okay.
that's, I just wanted to make sure I'm done and happy to take any questions, or we can go on to the legislative report.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Ed. And let's go with.
So I'll just kind of throw in there, you have the report up there. Since the last time the board has met, there have only been 2 additional positions taken. In opposition to 1303 funding for motor vehicle collision prevention. What that would do is essentially put, I'll use their terminology, a surcharge on insurance policies to fund essentially vulnerable road user projects, looking at bicycle, pedestrian, as well as wildlife crossings. I know that one, and Ed and Jennifer can chime in. I know that one went through first reading. I don't think it's on second reading yet. And then monitoring one bill, 1198, Regional Planning Roundtable Commission. All the other bills that we have listed, the committee has not recommended changing the positions as we have taken them since the last board meeting. Happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure Ed and Jennifer would be as well.
Okay, are there any questions? Go ahead, Mayor Thompson.
Did you want to go first, Commissioner Stone, since you're co-chair?
Oh, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, and I'm sorry, my notes are in a different notebook at home. There was a bill, I think we're on a certain position and we were like, if it changed, we could discuss it Wednesday and see if we need to change our position on that. Do you remember what the bill number was? 1169.
1272.
And-
Yep. So that was the construction defect bill. We have been reached out to by HBA, Housing and Builders Association. Some changes were made on second reading on the House floor that they kind of wanted to flag for us. It was kind of beyond my personal skill set in terms of what exactly those changes meant, other than my understanding is that they came kind of from the trial lawyers. So I have a predisposition just based on the source of that. But we have we have asked to try to kind of get some more details on what exactly those amendments would be. I haven't seen them. I don't know if Andy's seen them. Ed and Jennifer, I don't know if you guys have seen anything yet.
Thank you, Jared. We have not. We have been in communication with the lobbyist. I spoke with him yesterday. He is planning on getting some information to me in some specific language. So once I do receive that, I'm happy to share with you, happy to share with Andy, so that we can review that and discuss next Monday.
And the reason we were in support of that bill is because hoping this would enable condos to be built, which is an entry-level purchase for many people and seniors and otherwise. But okay. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Stone.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I was going to bring up the same issue, but just for information for those that weren't on the call, is that House Bill 1272 They did make amendments to it, which essentially guts the bill and does not move the needle in regards to being able to build condo type projects. And we believe it's a PPACG issue, not only because, of course, it would help potentially with affordable housing, that entry level housing piece, which has not existed for nearly 20 years in the state of Colorado, but also because we're the area agency on aging, is we have a significant population that we believe would like to stay in the state and move to a more maintenance free lifestyle that primarily the condo type developments can address and provide an opportunity for. And unless we get that, we can't help those people either. And of course, there's a ripple effect of them moving out of larger homes into smaller maintenance-free lifestyles, that runs across the entire gamut of our of our cities and counties. So there was a change in it. We didn't change our position yet because we don't know what HBA is recommending. We are assuming that what HBA comes with, the Home Builders Association, is going to be something that we would be able to support because obviously they would like to build stuff. And so anyway, that's the quick update on it.
Okay, so for now we need to approve this report. Are we staying in a support position on 1272, or do we want to go to a monitor position?
Yeah, for now, we're listed as support.
Okay.
We were contemplating moving to an amend. But for now,
All right, and our next legislative committee meeting is on Monday at 8:30. Go ahead, Andy.
no, and you were reading my mind, Madam Chair. I think if you give the legislative committee permission to shift if needed, if we get that language from the Home Builders Association, then that'll be a good discussion for Monday morning's meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So this is an action item. We need to go ahead and approve these positions on these bills. I'll take a motion to approve those.
I'll move, Mayor Dixon, I'll move we approve, but also authorize the legislative committee to react to whatever the HBA comes back with.
Okay.
O'Kine, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. So please know if you are interested in following this legislation in the next 30 days, it's very important that you attend that Monday morning meeting. It's via Zoom, and so you can attend in your pajamas. Don't tell anyone I said that, but I do. So, and that way we can keep track of that. So on the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you to our legislative committee, our lobbyists, and especially to Jared for all their hard work on this. It's hard to keep track in these last couple weeks.
Thank you all very much. As you said, we are meeting weekly Monday, just awareness. The next board meeting will be after the General Assembly ends. So just awareness that things are going to be moving quickly as appropriations gets going. So, but thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, our next item is the Metro Planning Organization update. William Mast. This is when we get to change our boundaries a little bit and move some of us into the MPO. Go ahead, William.
Hello, members of the board. My name is William Mast. I'm the GIS and Modeling Manager here at PPACG. We're going to be discussing required updates to the MPO boundary pursuant to federal and state regulations and planning requirements for the region. I'll walk you through some of those changes. None of them are terribly significant, but they do keep us in compliance with some of our planning operations and future requirements for forecast planning. Next slide, Jared. What we're talking about is the MPO boundary, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. For those who might not be aware, PPACG is the administrative body of the MPO, but the MPO is not the same as PPACG. So the MPO is required by federal law for any population area greater than 50,000 people, and it's designed to help administer primarily federal funding sources that come down. So we have really a forum to help analyze and distribute those funds within the urban areas according to priorities and needs that might stretch across jurisdictional boundaries, right? So we don't want to necessarily have an improvement and then have the improvement on a roadway stop at a jurisdictional boundary, even though traffic continues at that same volume. So that is one of the main functions of an MPO. For the areas outside the MPO that are within PPACG, that's actually administered by CDOT as part of their rural planning. That is Transportation Planning Region 14. So the Hart County, the majority of Teller County, and some of the rural areas of El Paso County are not impacted or part of the MPO. Next slide, Jared. The reason we have to update it is because by law, the MPO must encompass at a minimum the census urban area boundary. It can cover up to the metropolitan statistical area, which in our case would be both El Paso and Teller counties. However, we have historically taken a really balanced approach where we really are just trying to capture the urban areas. And because the urban areas were adjusted with the decennial census, our boundary has to update as well. In addition to the census urban area boundary, we also have something called the FHWA adjusted urban area boundary, where we sit down with CDOT and we work to identify areas that even though they weren't classified as urban according to the census, the traffic patterns there still have rural characteristics. So that considers things such as the access to the roadways, volume on the roadways, whether they connect, for example, urban areas. So think of it as Woodland Park is an urban area, Colorado Springs is an urban area. So you pass Highway 24, we also call urban, even though the space in between is not designated as urban by census. So that's the FHWA adjusted urban area boundary. It is sometimes referred to as a quote unquote smoothed urbanized area. And that process was finalized in coordination with CDOT at the end of last year. So with those updates complete, we now turn our attention to looking at where we need to make some adjustments to the MPO boundary to accommodate that. In addition, since we have the opportunity to update, we are looking at some other areas that we can make tweaks to just to help better and more consistently align with coincident features that make up our boundary. Specifically roadway alignments and creeks and rivers, because again, that changes as mapping accuracy improves since the 15 years have passed or 10 years have passed since we last did this. Next slide, please. So this is the census urban area boundary that you see in bright yellow. You can see how it fits within the MPO. This was done from the previous decennial census that completed. And we had some updates from the 2010 census. Most of those updates are because the census changed what qualifies as an urban area. The real big thing to note is Palmer Lake, with the new qualifications the census came out with the 2020 census. Palmer Lake does not meet the census criteria for an urban area. So that was one of the big changes. Next slide. However, when we look at what we consider the FHWA urban area, which defines a road as either urban or rural, you'll note Palmer Lake is included, as well as some of the more developed areas around Falcon and a lot of areas of high growth that are occurring around the region. Next slide. And when we talk about making updates to coincident boundary features, again, this is a good example. Part of our boundary follows Williams Creek. Well, creeks tend to move and shift position over time, so we pull up the latest information from the National Hydrography data set and just make sure that our boundary, again, lines up with that data set. This is important because census boundaries typically line up with these data sets as well. And so if we take census boundaries for like a block group and it's supposed to be coincident, our old boundary is no longer really coincident. We end up lopping off tiny little sections and including tiny little sections. Just because, again, the creek boundary has changed with the hydrography data set, and then census was updated to be coincident with that. So we're updating our MPO boundary to, again, be coincident with that. Legally, the boundary really isn't changing. We're just updating the spatial representation of it. Next slide. So with all the changes, nothing major. What you see in red on this map are all the areas really that we're proposing to add to the MPO boundary, again, to accommodate changes really in urban areas that were added in, or what we expect to be urbanized within the next 20 years, just looking ahead based on development patterns and the forecast that we've come up with. And I'll just walk you through these real quick and then be able to answer any questions you might have about it. Next slide. So starting up near Monument, we're looking at the northwest area of the MPO, Mount Herman Road. Right now, Mount Herman Road exits the MPO boundary. There's a little tiny corner that it cuts back in the MPO boundary and then continues outside the MPO boundary into the national forest. The area that you see there in red is what we're proposing that we add to that boundary. That means Mount Herman Road. The full extent of it that is actually eligible to receive federal funding will now be handled in the MPO as opposed to piecemeal. Again, that just makes planning operations a whole lot simpler. This also aligns with 2020 census block group boundaries, so it makes forecasting and demographic population estimates and things like that for planning purposes also a lot easier. Next. Cycling all the way back down south, we're looking at the southeast portion of the MPO down by Fountain. Since the last MPO boundary was put out, the city of Fountain has grown in terms of some of the area that they've annexed. Again, best practice, if municipality is a member of the MPO, we want to make certain that they are included in the MPO entirely, because again, it could be urbanized at some point in the future. So we want to plan ahead for that. Rather than just following the existing municipal boundary, what we've done instead is we're simply following PLS, that's the Public Land Survey System section lines. So we're following 2 sections to make sure that we've got a little buffer around the city of Fountain as well. Again, just for future annexations or any other development that might occur. If we move to the other side of I-25, still staying down on the south end of the MPO, we again are forecasting and expecting some development down by the power plant and the Pikes Peak International Raceway for the rail park. So right now with the plans of that rail park, half of it would be in an MPO and half of it, the southern half of it, will be outside. So again, looking ahead, we are extending the MPO boundary down to the next exit. That's exit 123. And we are simply taking it along the route of that exit. That's Lauren Lane all the way to the Fort Carson boundary, where it follows Fort Carson boundary around where it connects to the existing MPO boundary. That means that should, as the rail park gets developed over the next 20 years, should there need to be improvements, say on the interchange there, to improve the road capacity in and out. Again, that's part of the MPO. We don't have to worry about it being split amongst 2 different planning regions. Next. This change in Cascade doesn't impact anything in terms of roadway eligibility or funding. Again, this simply aligns the boundary with census urban boundaries and census block group boundaries for planning purposes. The MPO right now kind of curls back in around the North Pole Amusement Park in Cascade. We're simply following the creek and then connecting it to the Pikes Peak Highway just to make things simpler and accommodate where they had urban growth. So the census boundary included some of the housing that was just extended really on the other side of the current boundary. And rather than trying to capture that and make it real detailed, we're just taking a simplified approach and again aligns it with census boundaries. Same thing here with Green Mountain Falls. It's not a huge change. The urban area extended a little bit outside of El Paso County into the Teller County side of Green Mountain Falls. But we know Green Mountain Falls as a municipality, their boundary extends into Teller County. We're just simply following that boundary, including all of Green Mountain Falls, since they are a member of the MPO. Makes future planning easier for us. Now, this is the only other area in addition to Mount Herman Road where we're actually talking about a change to an existing roadway. We have about 2/3 of a mile of Highway 24 that right now would be in TPR 14. So in other words, funding for that stretch would be part of CDOT's planning region. 2/3 of a mile would then be put into the MPO. Again, this has to be done because when the census redid this urban area definition, they extended the urban area boundary further along Highway 24. So we're simply accommodating that. And then on the other side of Trout Creek, where the boundary kind of on the north end of the map there follows along, you can see we've got some housing and local roads in there that was also kind of included in the urban area. So we're simply following section lines to make sure we grab that. That's all. Next slide. This is where we have some of the major changes. It doesn't impact, again, anything in terms of roadway eligibility for funding. It simply cleans things up and aligns with other coincident features. Rather than following Trout Creek all the way up along the western side of the MPO boundary, we are simply following section lines pretty much straight north and then including all of the municipal boundary of Woodland Park, where it joins back up with Trout Creek. And then we are hitting Forest Road 339 way up on the northwest corner and taking that back to Highway 67. So the area that you see that has kind of the purple slash marks on it, that would be area that we're removing from the MPO. And the reason we want to do that is because, again, it aligns with urban boundaries. It also aligns with census block group boundaries. So we don't have that little portion of another block group sitting within the MPO. Again, that hampers planning purposes. It doesn't change anything in terms of roadways that are eligible or to receive funding or anything else. It simply cleans up the boundary. Then it follows on the east side of Colorado 67 down Long Gulch, just the same as it does right now, except we stay following Long Gulch all the way to the El Paso Teller County border, and then we take that all the way back down to Rampart Range Road. So you can see there's a portion in red that we would be adding to the MPO boundary, and then again, kind of a large portion that you can see in that we've identified on the map is kind of these purple hatch marks. That would be the area that we're giving up. Again, it doesn't change anything in terms of existing roadways. There are no eligible roadways for federal funding that we're adding or taking away with this. It just aligns it again with coincident boundaries, and specifically in this case, census tract and census block group boundaries. And that's it. So those are all the changes that we're proposing. Again, nothing major. We're changing less than a mile total of roadway eligibility that would otherwise be in TPR 14 that would be added to the MPO. But we are making certain that we are coincident with other planning features and other boundaries that have been changed at the federal level. Are there any questions at all about any of these proposed changes?
Okay, are there any questions? It's a lot. TPR 14 is actually the Central Front Range, and Dwayne McFall is the representative to the Statewide Transportation Advisory Committee on that. So, all right, this is an action item. And so I'll take a motion to update our MPO boundaries.
I just had a comment.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Mayor Thompson.
As Yolanda referred to, I've been around here a while. I would like to compliment you on your presentation on how well it is done. In the past, when we've had these presented to us, it's just pretty much rubber stamp this map, please. So thank you for taking all the time and explaining it very thoroughly. And Fountain is very thrilled with the rail yard project being included in that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And I'll make a motion if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and then Councilmember
Oh,
Avila
yeah.
has a question.
I just wanted to say ditto. I was really impressed with the presentation, how it flowed. And you did your homework. Great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. In the past, it's been presented like, here's the map, we're smoothing some boundaries, rubber stamp it. And you're like, so thank you.
If I could just, Madam Chair, we heard that same comment. Will got the same compliments from our CAC just last month. Best presentation that they've received, I think, is one of the comments that the CAC member made. So, so thank you, Will. Great job. And this did go to the TAC as well, correct?
It's been approved by the TAC and the CAC. Yes.
Okay, now we'll take that motion.
Okay, move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to information items. Air quality update and Air Quality Awareness Week proclamation. Andy Gunning and Angie Martell.
I'm just going to kick it off, but quickly hand it off to, not sure if Angie, you want to come up. Angie will come up in a few minutes, but Dina Wojtek is our air quality contractor. She's been working with us now for a couple of years. Retired a couple of years back from the Air Pollution Control Division within CDPHE, so she's got great knowledge around our air quality challenges and is just going to give a quick update on kind of where we are with our air quality status. And then after that, we do have a proclamation in your packet as well that we'll be seeking approval for because May, I forget the dates, first week in May is Air Quality Awareness Week. Angie will go over that. So that's going to happen before the next board meeting in May. So we wanted to get this in front of you as well. So with that, glad to have Dina here.
All right, thank you. Yes, I'm Dina Wojtek with Two Roads Environmental. I'm here today as your consultant, and we're going to talk a bit about ozone in the Pikes Peak area. Oops, not that way. What did I do, Jared? There we go. Okay. First, we need to know that ozone is a complicated pollutant. It is not directly emitted. In fact, it's actually formed in the atmosphere as a result of two other precursor pollutants reacting in the presence of sunlight. And those precursor pollutants are volatile organic compounds. Those are emissions from like fuels and solvents evaporating. Those are VOCs. And then also we have nitrogen oxides, which are a byproduct of combustion activities. And so those VOCs and NOx react in the atmosphere in the presence of sunlight. So we can control man-made VOCs and NOx, and we can control what is generated locally. But there are some things that we cannot control that contribute to ozone formation, and that includes that background ozone that would already be there. You know, if you subtracted all of the man-made emissions out of the mix. As well as ozone that's generated from distant sources, whether it's outside of the local area, outside of the state, outside of the nation. And then there's also contributions from natural sources like weather events, wildfires and vegetation, soils, those kinds of things. Those are not locally controllable. So there's emissions that we can control and ozone contributions that we can control, and there are those that we cannot. And I keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. So what do we know about ozone in the area? So I mentioned again, ozone is a complicated pollutant, and how we look at it and compare it to federal standards is also complicated. So first of all, we continuously monitor ozone, and there are 3 monitors in the Pikes Peak area, 2 of which have been running for 3 years or more, and that's Manitou and the Air Force Academy. We now have a 3rd monitor that's in Pueblo West that has not been running for 3 years, and that's important. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But today we're going to focus on the ones that have been running for 3 years, and therefore we have enough data compared to the federal standard. So what we do is we look at the data that's coming in from those monitors, and we determine 8-hour averages. And then we look for the entire year for that one monitor, or for each monitor, what is the 4th highest or 4th max daily 8-hour average? We then take that 4th max daily 8-hour average per year, per monitor, and we sum that up for the previous 3 years. And then we create an average of that. And that average is what we call a design value. And that design value is what we compare to the federal standards. And so in the top right corner, you've got a graph that's got the 4th max daily 8-hour averages for the Air Force Academy and the Manitou monitors. So the Air Force Academy is in blue, Manitou is in orange. You can see that Manitou started later than the Air Force Academy. I've included also a trend line that's just associated with emissions data from, or monitored data from the Air Force Academy, and you can see that we're trending upwards. So ozone levels are trending upwards in the area. So then looking down in the bottom graph, we have a red line. So again, these are the 3-year averages, and that's used in comparison to the federal standard. The red line indicates what the ozone standard is, and you'll see over time it is ratcheted down. There are 2 current ozone standards that currently apply. However, we're most focused on the most stringent standard of 0.07 parts per million that came into effect in 2015. All right. All right. So we saw that ozone levels are trending upwards. We saw that the design values that used in comparison to the federal standards are over that lower, more stringent standard. But it's important to keep in mind that the Pikes Peak area is currently designated as attainment for ozone. However, if local monitored ozone levels continue to exceed federal standards, the area could be designated as non-attainment in the near future. And that designation would depend on future monitored ozone levels. So it could be something like the 2025 through 2027 timeframe that they would look at. And they would only look at that upon completion of the EPA's review of ozone standards. And so the Clean Air Act obligates EPA to review those standards every 5 years. And I said the most recent stringent standard came out in 2015. So we're past 5 years. So EPA is currently undergoing a review of that ozone standard. So even if they come back and say, we're not going to lower that standard at all, we're going to keep the same standard, they're going to look at the data and look at the monitors throughout the entire nation and say which ones have design values over those standards. And so if they looked right now, it would look like design values in the area are over the federal standards. So that designation of non-attainment would trigger requirements for at least 20 years, and in fact, more like 30. And that's depending on being an area being able to lower its ozone levels to actually meet those federal standards. Regardless of a designation of non-attainment or attainment, high ozone levels have health, environmental, and economic impacts. For some reason, I'm missing a slide. I'm so sorry. So we're going to go back and try to get that for you. So I'm just going to hit some of the information that's in the slide that is not here for, I apologize for that. So what we did is we looked at what are the economic impacts, what did some of the other areas that are similarly situated to the Colorado Springs area, what did they estimate in terms of economic impacts to their areas? And so there were places, I think like Corpus Christi, there's several places in like Oklahoma and Texas. And they had different boundaries, different populations, different industries, that kind of thing. They were done from 2013 to 2020, so different time ranges. And they were not all inclusive. They didn't include like the health impacts, like how many hospitalizations due to asthma related events, or lost work days, or lost in productivity because your employers are gone. They didn't account for impacts to crop yields and that kind of thing. They simply looked at, this is our economic base for industry. Industry is going to be subject to more stringent requirements in terms of permitting, modeling, controls. What industries are we trying to court to bring into the area? And they may make different decisions on locating in our area because we are now a non-attainment area and have more stringent requirements. Industries that are currently here may make different decisions in terms of whether or not they're going to modify and increase, whatever widgets that they are producing in the area, or do that somewhere else where they don't have the more stringent requirements. And some industries may decide to leave. So based on what they knew in terms of the industry in the area and who they were trying to bring in, that kind of thing, they estimated costs. I will tell you they're in the billions. When I sit back down, I can get you actual dollars. Andy, are you?
I'm trying to remember what the ranges were. I know Oklahoma City, the region there, did a great job identifying. Oh, here's the slide. Temporarily disappeared, but now this is the one you were referring to?
I watched Jared working this magic.
You found it, yeah.
Yeah, Dana, it's on the monitors to your left.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ranging from 8.2 billion to 52 billion in 2020 dollars. And so that'd be even higher if you scaled that up to $2025, the value of $1 today. So big impacts. Over 30 years, they estimated they weren't going to bring the areas right into attainment right away. So they estimated for 30 years. And so this is like, it's not an apples to apples comparison. It's just to indicate what could lie ahead. All right. Now we can move on to the slide. Yay. So that makes us start wondering, what do we need to start thinking about? If there's a non-attainment designation, what might that mean? So there's some decisions you want to think about. First of all, is the boundary. You have an ozone non-attainment area immediately to your north in the Denver metro area. An expedient approach might be, hey, let's just expand the existing non-attainment area to include all or some portion of the Pikes Peak area. Or do you want to create your own separate non-attainment area? And we'll talk about what makes sense there in just a second. You also want to think about what classification of non-attainment area. And so usually when they look at your monitored ozone levels and how close you are to the standard, they will classify the area as marginal, moderate, serious, severe. They get progressively worse. If you were to be engulfed in or incorporated into the larger Denver metro non-attainment area, they are currently seeking reclassification to be severe. So they've moved through the lesser stringent requirements, and they are now at a severe. So that's like going from 0 to 60, a very short period of time. And so it may make sense to have your own non-attainment area, a separate non-attainment area. And there's some other decisions you need to think about in terms of control strategies that might apply. Just simply expanding existing control requirements that apply in the Denver metro area down in the Pikes Peak area. While that's an expedient approach, it may not make sense in terms of they have a lot of oil and gas. They've been focusing a lot on oil and gas control requirements. Pikes Peak area does not. And so simply adopting those control requirements doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to automatically bring the area into attainment. You might need to develop more localized approaches for the industry that you have, for the sources that are contributing to ozone formation in your area. And you have a lot less industry than the Denver metro area does. You could also adopt other states' control requirements. But again, you're going to want to look at what's contributing to ozone formation in our area, what might make sense for that kind of source that's already been developed and that we could use as a model from other states. All right, so on the right-hand side, I've included some examples of existing control strategies. And so the top of the list here, vehicle inspection and maintenance program. So emissions testing on your cars. I know that didn't go over well back with carbon monoxide. I remember that doing that here, but that may be something that may have to be looked at for the Pikes Peak area. You're going to be looking at motor vehicle emission budgets associated with transportation and general conformity purposes. So transportation planning is going to be a big part of control requirements that'll be considered. There's industrial requirements. And here's some examples of some things that have been looked at and actually controlled. Emissions from electric generation, fuel switching, control requirements. There might have to offset for any increase, any modification where they increase, production of whatever it is that they do, their widgets. They may have to offset that increase by doing some other project that lowers emissions by that amount and more. You're going to likely go beyond industry requirements. You're going to start looking at reformulated gasoline, lawn and garden equipment, electrification of that kind of equipment. You're going to look at, the vehicles and, trying to move towards zero emission vehicles, that kind of thing. So I do want to highlight that, mobile source emission targets are being considered up in the Denver metro area. And that's more so, capping mobile source emissions. And that's not just on road, but that's also off-road equipment now. And so I think the MPO does a lot of work with on-road equipment, but not so much with off-road. And when we're talking about recreational equipment, we're talking about forklifts, we're talking about things that in agricultural industry. So there's a lot to consider as you are looking at a potential non-attainment designation. So with that, I will stop and take questions.
Commissioner Stone and then Mayor LeKind.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Not really questions, but if we do end up, in non-attainment, my frustration as you look at, that previous list of, what I'll just call them potential mitigations, is that for each one of those, I mean, as a commissioner, I'm sure as you members of councils as well, is we look for solutions on things that how much impact something actually having. When you, for example, lawn and garden equipment, this isn't Florida. We don't mow lawns 12 months out of the year. We don't do garden work 12 months out of the year. We do it 3 months out of the year. And with the continued move to xeriscaping and other things where those types of equipments that putting an onerous burden upon our residents on something that is naturally by way of frankly our society is being used less and less, is that a lot of the things that I see on here, for example, vehicle inspection maintenance program, we absolutely know that 25 years ago, the emissions from vehicles are dramatically different than what they are today. And how much impact, would versus the economic cost of putting an emissions plan in place in the Pikes Peak region actually have when we consider, that the emissions of vehicles have been dramatically changed, just through the industry and also through federal requirements. A lot of these things that I look at, knowing where we are, the background ozone, the wildfire situations and what happens every year with stuff that moves in is, the cost to our area and the impact to the choices of our residents could be dramatically impacted with zero effect on the actual recorded numbers that that go into these 3-year averages. So I guess I'm just expressing a lot of frustration that we're looking at a lot of things that could impact citizens that would actually have very little impact because of where we live and where a lot of this comes from. And I don't know. I get frustrated by it. I guess it's a rant more than anything. And we aren't in non-attainment yet, but but again, looking at a lot of these things is the low emission, zero emission vehicle sales, even with all of Midas's money, $12,500 in incentives to buy electrical vehicles. There's no way we're going to meet the goals that were set by the Colorado legislature, to be at, what was it, 30% of all vehicles being electrified by 2030. It ain't going to happen. And sales are increasing or were increasing, but 8% interest rates tend to cut in on that, even if you give them $12,000. But anyway, rant over. I could do it for another 5 minutes, but.
Okay, Mayor LeKind.
I don't know that I want to follow that, but I actually have a question about the meter reading stations that are set up. The most northern in the region is Manitou.
There's one on
USAFA. Oh, USAFA.
Mhm.
Okay, so there'd be no reason to move one further north just for temporary purposes to get an understanding of what's going on right at the county line. Is there a way to do that?
The state has employed like temporary monitors in the past, and so there's an possibility of doing that. I think you'd want to explore kind of the reasoning behind that.
You don't know the reasoning?
I suspect it's called Bucky's.
Well, yeah, there's
See, we have this ESP thing going on here.
There's a potential of a large travel station, right? At county line, there's open space to the north. And I would like to understand what the potential impact would be for the region up there with the 8,000 to 20,000 vehicle stops per day coming in. I don't think any of the smaller communities up there could afford to be penalized by the government for additional contribution to the environment.
It is possible if there is a Bucky's in Longmont. And so if you had an air quality station anywhere near that Bucky's, it would be really fascinating.
That would be great too.
Data.
Good point.
Because Palmer Lake will be considering that sometime in the next 6 months.
So we can certainly explore that. I will say what you do tend to see higher ozone monitored values at elevation. And so it's going to be a higher elevation than the long location would be. But we can certainly reach out and talk to the state about, you know, whether they have plans for, you know, doing some kind of temporary study in the near future, or would they consider it. So happy to work with you on that.
Cool, thank you.
Dixon, do you had a comment?
I'm gonna kind of follow Commissioner Stone's comments and that, you know, what happens if we spend billions of dollars to try to maintain attainment and we get a forest fire? Is that taken into account at all? Because I could see one forest fire basically wiping out our numbers and, you know, putting us back into non-attainment after we spent billions to try to get into attainment.
So there are processes in place that would look at those kinds of events potentially as an exceptional event, and removing that high data from, you know, that 3-year average that I talked about developing. There's some possibilities of doing that, but and EPA has very recently, early 2024, I believe, came out with some guidance to try to streamline that. However, it's still extremely resource intensive, and volumes of paper that you have to document. And then that's not a guarantee that EPA would approve that. So there's a lot of ifs in that process. I will say that there are a number of areas in the Intermountain West that are facing challenges in terms of wildfires, you know, impacting their data, and exploring, you know, how to account for that. And so there are some options to further explore. There's some things that are already on the books. We may see some additional wildfire guidance that just came out recently to see if that's going to help with that process. But again, it's not a foregone conclusion.
And Madam Chair, if I could add to that just real quick, I've mentioned before, and I think I've shared the letters that we've been sending to EPA. We're working with this Intermountain West regional group across states, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, and putting pressure on EPA to give us some flexibility around wildfire impacts and other natural background impacts, and something that we're all dealing with, but other parts of the country don't deal with. We actually got a really good announcement earlier this week. My counterpart from Phoenix met with EPA administrator a couple of weeks ago, and then earlier this week, counterpart in Salt Lake City met with Administrator Zeldin, EPA administrator. And after that meeting, they put out an announcement saying that they're going to update their guidance on international impacts to states and regions that are dealing with the international dynamic that's out of our control. Doesn't impact us as much here, but this is definitely a step in the right direction, where we finally, I think, through those efforts the past couple of years, we've gotten the attention of EPA. This is on their radar. The next step is to see what we can do around getting more flexibility with exceptional events and dealing with wildfire impacts as well. So we're making progress. So we're feeling optimistic about that.
So Commissioner Weissong, did you still have a comment? No. Okay, and then I was going to say we can be very optimistic about it. I think Mayor Thompson, I'll finish my thought, because Governor Polis has been helping us with those conversations with the EPA. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I was sitting there as a former elementary teacher whose kids a lot of kids used to say, I'm never going to use math. You use a lot of math. So, is there any allowance? You showed a slide that showed the upward trend it was one of with the bar graph thing. They showed an upward trend, and back.
Yeah,
back.
There we go.
I think back one more maybe. Anyway, it showed the upward trend, and I was just curious, if you look at that and it goes all the way back to, I think it says 1990, the population has greatly increased. And so obviously the ozone is going to increase, is there any allowance given to the population growth in the area, and not just because you got more cars in the road, you got more people, you got more manufacturing going on?
Well, there's the heart of the matter right there. People cause pollution.
Right.
So population actually is factored in when you're developing emission inventories and projecting out what you think you're going to be in the future. And we use a lot of national data that is prorated based on population, and so it increases. But there's no forgiveness in terms of our population grew, and therefore, we get a lesser stringent requirement. And in fact, what you'll likely hear from people is, regardless of population growth or wildfire influence, we're still breathing high ozone high ozone, and it has health impacts. And so regardless of, the accounting for what's contributing and what we can do about it, you're still going to face that kind of argument, and it's a valid one. So it's a balance.
It is, but it also makes staying in attainment more difficult. So it seems like there should be some flexibility when an area has a huge population growth, which I think we've had in the last 10 years. Since we moved to Fountain, it's more than doubled in population. And then just a couple of comments was, I went to a couple of different seminars, and this is where I think on the ground we get frustrated with so many different things coming at us, but it doesn't seem like people are really working together. So for example, CML is doing a series of things on recycling, which on its surface sounds really good. But one of the slides they showed last week, they have these things called MRFs, where they send the stuff to be processed.
Okay.
And then it goes from the MRF to be reused. And a majority of it a large percentage of it goes into the landfill because it's contaminated in some way. We are moving that stuff all over the United States. Their map was absolutely fascinating to me, watching plastic go to the East Coast and stuff from the East Coast come to the West Coast and go to South to Texas and to the manufacturer. And you just think of all the pollution in our effort to keep the world cleaner that way, all the pollution we're creating in the ozone while we're moving this stuff all around the United States. So it just makes it very frustrating. And then I listened to the Front Range Passenger Rail meeting last week, and several people calling in from the greater Denver transit area saying that RTD ridership is down, 3%. And we're hoping the Front Range Passenger Rail will kind of kickstart people wanting to use transportation again. But that's going to put, if they get it going the way they want it to get going, that's going to put theoretically trains that would run every 90 minutes, 10 round trips a day from Pueblo to Fort Collins, 10 round trips at 75 miles an hour through my community. That's going to put a lot of people idling, sitting, waiting, school buses waiting, but yet our ozone restrictions keep going down. So there just doesn't seem to be a lot of coordination between all these plans we're all trying to do to be better. And this is not an attack on you. This is just kind of a comment in general, that we can make all the plans, but if we're making all these other restrictions and other ways and other things we're required to do, we're not really making any progress. And so anyways, that's my rant for the day. Just let's figure out how to work all these together, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to be, running trains through communities and people sitting there idling and running recycling stuff all over the United States, where we're creating more ozone, essentially. And I agree with your comment about we don't use a lot of the mowing and weed whackers and stuff. And it's a very expensive proposition to change all of our cities and counties over to that stuff that may or may not work. So thank you.
Well, and I will point out a couple of good things and then turn it over to Commissioner Mitchell. For one, we've changed over Colorado Springs Utilities, the downtown plant, so it's now natural gas. And then the Mountain Metro also is trying to buy natural gas buses, which help. And so once we go into non-attainment and it hits the pocketbook, you might get people looking more at mass transit, even me. And that's unusual because I love my car. Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amy Mitchell, Park County. Just a question. is there any factor applied to altitude? Because Colorado Springs, El Paso County is 1,000 feet higher plus or minus than Denver. And I know that that 0.07 is the parts per million standard, but altitude is an intrinsic factor that you cannot do anything about. So I just wanted to know if there's any kind of math that helps compensate for altitude. Thank you.
So that's a great question. In fact, there is an ozone monitor we call it the Gothic monitor. It's in or near Crested Butte where there's really no industry around, and it is at altitude, and its readings are, right around the standard. They're in the upper 60s. And so altitude does play a function in this. Meteorology does as well. And, as we know who live along the Front Range, you get the turbulent up and down mixing. And it brings the Gouda ozone from way up high that, it brings it down low. And so while it's good up there, it's not good when it's down here and we breathe it. But it's still ozone. And it's still, that's monitors are reading that ozone. And so that is a valid concern. And that with, all of these other factors that we can't control, whether it's elevation, meteorology, whether it's coming from outside of Colorado, outside of the US, there's some forgiveness in some existing policies from EPA, but as we see the lower standard really taking effect and more areas having trouble attaining it despite their best efforts and making significant strides in reducing those precursor pollutants, the man-made precursor pollutants that we can do something about, and they're not seeing ozone levels decrease as it should. I think there's going to be room for more and more conversation, and that's exactly what's happening through the Intermountain West MPO group that Andy's been spearheading.
Okay, then I'll have a one sentence rant. No human intervention can impact those natural occurrences to attain any kind of reduction. So thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Okay, it's my turn for a rant, I guess. And I'd like to compliment my colleagues on keeping your rants at pretty modest levels. And I'll apologize in advance if I'm the one who goes off the handle today. To kind of repeat Commissioner Stone's comments, what's recommended in so many of these things are, I mean, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's not even a drop in the bucket. As Mayor Dixon said, we could have a fire wherever. I mean, certainly it doesn't even have to be in Colorado. It could be in Canada. I guess it could be in China. And that would throw us out of compliance. Previously, when we've addressed this topic, we've looked to see how much influence we actually have, percentage of the non-compliance. And I think we thought that in Colorado, the most leverage we could have on our very best day was 10% of the problem. So to pursue compliance with these bureaucratic guidelines, I think are really and I admire Andy's approach to work collaboratively with the Intermountain West people, but really, I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if we're really talking about trying to solve the problem. It's not shuffling paper; it's doing something about the environment. So I guess one of my questions is, among this list of examples of existing control strategies, I'd like to see nuclear energy there. I think small modular nuclear reactors are becoming more feasible. I think in the scope that we're looking at here in the next 5 years, they'll become increasingly practical. They're scalable. It's repeatable. The new designs are circumventing the huge monolithic designs that we've seen in the past that have been such financial obstacles. And also there's the technical concerns that have gone with that. I think it's time to embrace some new thinking on that. Colorado Springs Utilities, as Commissioner Williams said, they got rid of the Martin Drake power plant. Now we're using natural gas. In the coming years, we could be using, I think, nuclear energy, and we should be looking at that. You look at CSU's plans to develop their I guess what we call the non-renewable energy, the backup power they have to have instead of, or to augment, to supplement solar and wind power. And they've got a huge appetite. I mean, it's unbelievable the number of megawatt hours that they're looking for. It seems to me like, and certainly our colleagues here that are on the Colorado Springs City Council and thus the Colorado Springs Utilities Board, I think really there needs to be some careful thought given into the feasibility of nuclear power. So perhaps you've got some comments on that. Thank you. Actually, I joked with our CSU representative. We've got some old railroad tunnels, and I thought, we could stick a couple of those in there. We'd plant trees outside, put some picnic tables in there, and I think even the Manitou hippies would be happy. You've got it. Absolutely.
So just a couple of thoughts to that, and that's certainly something that should be explored. As with anything, any new solution, there's pros and cons to it, right? So there's going to be cons that have to be considered as well. And it kind of goes back to what Mayor Thompson was talking about as the collaboration, as let's solve this problem, but now we just created another one in terms of, I don't know, spent waste or, or education and how to maintain these things. I don't know, guessing. So I think it's definitely worth exploring. And I do believe, I thought I've been seeing some news articles about trying to do something in northeastern Colorado to that extent. So I'll see if I can dig that up and share it with you.
Thank you. If I might mention, I have a son who's in the Air Force. His specialty is nuclear energy, and he's been collaborating to some extent with personnel at Peterson Air Force Base on an informal basis, and the discussion has been principally nuclear energy and more specifically small nuclear reactors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Avila.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. I'm actually the vice chair, well, for the next week of CSU, and the UPAC was given the assignment in looking into nuclear small modular reactors, and it was pretty robust. So I would encourage you to get the final report from UPAC, and they are really looking at that. In fact, they're going to hire someone in nuclear at CSU. So they are moving in that direction. So many things have come up. They're not like the plants in the past, right? 30 years ago. So it's in the works right now, but permitting and connecting the transmission is like is really the obstacle right now. But as things move on, and it's going to be like 10, 15 years with all the permitting that's going on, but we look really closely at what Wyoming's doing and other parts of the nation. So it's already on there. I think that you're the messenger, and I really apologize that you're taking all the bullets. It's just your work, and so you're doing a great job of trying to navigate all of us here on the board. But I don't know if you guys want to hear this, but I read this. I don't know if you heard of Malcolm Gladwell, and he did the tipping point. Well, he did the tipping point 2.0, and he described about actually COVID, and there's these super spreaders. Like most people aren't super spreaders, but there's this individual that there's just a few people that are these super spreaders, and he likened that to auto emissions. As like there are some cars, as I hear about, the things that we just use in the summertime, and they don't have such a consequence on the environment, on ozone, but it's these super spreader cars that there are a lot of cars that emit the most. They emit so much out there. And what do we do? But there might be a moral question. It's like, who uses these cars? The poor people that can only afford it. But I would just encourage you just like to look at other solutions. I know that we could all go on rants, but Eric, you one time I heard you and I was just so impressed. And I maybe will you correct me? It was like, do you want to be right Do you principled, or do you want to have a solution? Do we look for a solution? And there's always going to be a consequence, as you stated. There's a consequence, but how do we come to a solution and look at just a lot of areas to come to that solution? Yes, we're upset about the wildfires and how we're impacted. But how do we come to that solution, and how do we look into a lot of different areas? So um, that's that's my rant. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that discussion. We appreciate the information. Very complex subject, and you made it sound a little easier than I would have expected. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation.
I was going to say, in the interest of time, don't need to read it, but if you want to, go for it, or we can pull it up in the screen. I'm showing it's page 84 in the packet, but either way, yeah.
Okay. I will take a motion to move the proclamation for the Air Quality Awareness Week in support of.
So Mayor LaConda, I make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Amy Mitchell, I second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, regional visioning update by Andy Gunning.
Well, I'm just simply going to introduce our great partner, Margaret Dolan, the head of the Pikes Peak Community Foundation. She's leading this effort, and yeah, exciting work is taking place and still ahead. So thank you, Margaret, for coming over and briefing our group. I know you did this before. I think it was over the summer, just to let us know before things kicked off what the future holds. But yes, the floor is yours.
Make sure this is on. You guys hear me? Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm a Mac gal. I think I told you guys that last time I was here. So give me a second. Okay. First of all, a huge thank you. This organization, your organization, has been in support of this effort since the very beginning. In particular, Andy Gunning, who has given tirelessly of his time and his leadership to be helpful. We also partnered with you guys in order to achieve a grant from DOLA, which we're very proud of and very excited to be continuing this partnership. So thank you. And I have a huge deck that I'm going to quickly go through a lot of these beautiful pictures because I think we're running a little bit short of time. But we have finally named our regional visioning effort, and it's called Our Spacious Skies. And it pays tribute to Catherine Bates, who wrote that incredible poem from the Antlers about our beloved Pikes Peak. All right. We have tremendous support. So you'll see El Pomar Foundation is financially supporting Norwood, John Street, and Mary Beasley. The Community Foundation, of course. PPACG, in addition to partnering with us from a leadership perspective, you also gave us a generous grant to support this work. RNR Family Foundation, Acclivity Foundation, WNH Foundation, and we also have many other hooks in the water. This is our steering committee leadership team. Pastor Ben Anderson, whom you may know, Cindy Aubrey, recently retired from United Way, and former Mayor John Suthers. I'm going to leave this up a little bit. This is our steering committee. I hope you can see it okay. Nice that you've got monitors at your place. We worked really, really hard to make sure that this steering committee properly represented the residents of El Paso and Teller counties. And so it's not supposed to be just like the normal group of a small group of 15 leaders that sometimes, you find yourself in a room with. So it's meant to be very diverse, geographically, culturally, race, etc. You don't need to see that. So that's me and Nicole Rivet. Nicole is an extraordinary leader, and we brought her in. She moved back to Colorado Springs from Phoenix, where she had been for about the last 6 years, and she's our new vice president, and she is leading this work on a day-to-day basis. I think when I met with you last time, we had already selected our consulting group that's been doing work across the country. I wanted to remind you of the other regions that they have done work with. It's a pretty spectacular group. We're all dying to go and see Envision Leia in Hawaii. So if we make that trip, we'll make sure and let you guys know.
Yes, please invite all of us.
And you'll see that they have also in the bottom right hand corner, they've used this approach on air quality. So might be of interest if we need to pursue that at some point. So this sort of says where we are. So, and I'll go into this a little more deeply in some of the subsequent slides, but this phase 1 framing, our consultants interviewed about 14 leaders from both counties, about 45 minutes each to get their thoughts on things. And then we had these regional leader illumination lab sessions. So we've done 3 of those, including about 90 people. We did those in mid-February as well as in March. We added the 3rd one because our February sessions were supposed to include several people from Teller County. The weather was bad. They couldn't get there. So we actually added on a 3rd session in Divide where we had probably 15 people, I think, come in person. These are what I would call technology-enabled focus groups. So it's a big group in a room just like this. Everybody has a computer. The consultants go through a series of questions, and then after everybody puts in their answers, they're displayed on a big screen. And people can see that and then react to it. And it's a laddering exercise. So they start with, what do you care most about on your street? What's impacting your quality of life? And then they progress to get a little bit bigger in terms of the region ultimately. In phase 2, the voice of the people, these Brightboard sessions are happening this week. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So this is a little bit about those illumination labs I was telling you about. So we had the first one in February was for the steering committee. The second one, which was the day after that, we had another 32 people. And we had people show up who had not said that they were going to come. So it was really exciting because it was standing room only. And I just love to see more people show than thought they were going to be able to. And then the Teller County session that I was telling you about. The Brightboard sessions are happening right now. So the steering committee, as well as probably many of you in this room, gave us referrals for people who would be part of this deep dive, which is called the Brightboard session. There's 70 people who are participating. They started on Monday. They had work to do yesterday. They have the day off today, but then more on Thursday and more on Friday. So this is a little bit of the outline of what they're going to be answering questions about. And so at the beginning of the day, they spend about 30 minutes answering questions. Midday, we ask them to check in again because once they have submitted their answers, they can see what other people have said and respond to that. And then every afternoon and evening, the consultants take a look at that to decide how the next day's agenda may or may not be modified. So I wanted to tell you some of the things they're asking about. So all that initial work, the interviews and so on, formed a basis for what they're going to ask these participants about in this week-long deep dive. And so some of the things that came out of those interviews from a positive perspective were great weather, great views of nature, outdoor recreational opportunities, opportunities to engage in health and wellness activities, high quality of education for our children, high quality of post-secondary education. These are things that people are saying are having a positive effect on their quality of life. The people are welcoming and accepting, the energy of the people, the history and heritage of our region, a strong sense of community and belonging, a place I can call home, a family-oriented place, a good place to raise a family. On the flip side, they're also asking questions about things that people perceive are negatively affecting their quality of life. A lack of affordable housing, increased housing cost, and a housing shortage. Water issues and management. I'm hearing, Mayor, when I'm thinking about what you said about maybe the right hand and the left hand aren't talking to one another when we're thinking about these things, part of our motivation for doing this is to encourage that very recognition of the interdependence and an increased level of collaboration. Poor, poor quality of education for our children. So you see a disparity. And the way our consultants described it is these are looking at averages. And so you may have had a whole group of people that ranked this very positively as affecting their quality of life. And on the other hand, a whole group of people that said, this is negatively affecting my quality of life. High cost of living, wildfire vulnerability, homelessness, mental health, and inadequate support, traffic and congestion. It's harder to get around than before, and a lack of affordable child care. So I also wanted to show you a little bit about how much attention our consultants and our steering committee are paying to make sure that we really hear from everybody who needs to have a voice in this work. So you can see that they even categorize people by, are they informed? Do they consider themselves well informed or extremely conformed or just somewhat? Their gender, male, female, all those age groups, their ethnicity. And then are they in an urban area? Are they suburban? Are they rural? This morning we had a meeting in the steering committee and we got into a really interesting discussion about the difference between rural eastern El Paso County and rural Teller County and how those different populations have very different things that they're thinking about that are affecting their way of life. Residency, how long have they been here? So I also wanted to remind you about a couple of things. So Utah, when they did their Envision Utah process, they used it to do several things that you can see here. So their effort back in the 90s led to support for public transportation. Hot on our minds here, right? They created the Wasatch Choice Vision. And they had a visioning process for the Jordan River. Imagine Nashville recently completed their Imagine Nashville work about a year ago, I guess. And when I lived in Nashville, we had the very first ballot initiative on transit that failed. This process actually helped to get the populace more bought in to the need for transit. They also launched a Catalyst Fund, Nashville Early Education Coalition. So you can see that these kinds of efforts can lead to a lot of important initiatives. Okay, that's all I'm going to torture you with in the slide department, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And excuse my voice, I think the pollen count's gone from here to there in like 48 hours.
Are there any questions? Okay, well, we're enjoying watching this. Go ahead, council member.
I don't really have a question, Madam Chair, but I would really encourage you to give a presentation at City Council, at Colorado Springs City Council. I think this information would be really helpful. And how do you do that? You'll contact the whoever the board president to see if they can get you on the agenda for a work session. I think this would be really valuable.
At a work session, you think would be best?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the suggestion.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? If none, I will wrap by saying when we get to the community survey, we hope to get back thousands of responses. So there's going to be a scientific survey that'll build on all this information that we've already gathered. That'll be about 700 people. It'll happen in probably mid to late May. and that'll have a plus or minus 3.8% error rate. Then the community survey will go out late May, early June. It might bleed over into mid-June, depending on how long it takes to assimilate this other information. But we will be looking to all of you, the steering committee, all your connectivity with nonprofits, faith-based organizations, et cetera, to be able to hand that QR code or a paper survey in our senior centers and encourage people to complete it, because we want to hear from as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our third item is, if Jody Barker's still on the line, we have our AAA carryover funds.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Jody Barker, your Director of the Area Agency on Aging. This year, we did receive some carryover funds. For those who may not be aware, carryover funds are usually federal funds that are reallocated back into regions where there were some balances left. In this case, this year, our carryover funds also included a little bit of state funding. This is funding that the State Unit on Aging, our state level administrators, retain as part of their match. These were unneeded and unused funds, and so those have been reallocated into the region. So our total carryover total this year was $385,702.39. This board provided a contingent vote when we first received these funds so that we could move through the carryover process as smoothly and as quickly as possible. We had hoped to have this allocated early at the first of the year. We've just recently completed the process, and so I will share a little bit more around this. Just for clarification and for context, we do distribute these funds based on current spend down, ability to spend more funds if needed. Because federal funding is now distributed by the federal funding parts, that does also limit how funds may be distributed based on service lines and that kind of thing. These also encompass presentation to our Regional Advisory Council for these, and so our RAC were presented these at their most recent meeting at the end of March. The providers who were awarded these additional funds have already had their contract amendments completed and executed, which means that they had full access to these funds effective March 1st, because we were able to complete this process in March. And so, Jared, if you would go to the first, the summary, PPAAA 2023. Thank you. So just a quick summary of these funds. Part B funds are for supportive services. These might include things like transportation, dental supports, low vision supports, and that kind of thing. Part C1 are congregate meal programs only. It's important to realize how these parts can be used or may be used. So Part C1 are congregate meal programs only. We received $236,033.14. This is a little higher than usual, simply because we were closing out the urgency funding, which was had to be spent first, and so this is a little unusual to have this amount left in this particular part, but we don't foresee that happening in future years. Part C2 had a zero balance in carryover. Part C2 is home delivered meal programs. Part D funding of $17,955.04 is for evidence-based programs. And so we just have a couple of providers in that arena. Part E funding of $25,686.01. That is specifically allowable only for caregiver support. And again, there are only two programs provided there. Part EAP, Part OMB, and federal admin had zero carryover. Part EAP is called, it's for elder abuse prevention. We here in Region 4 combine that with Part OMB, which is our Ombudsman service line, and we blend that and use that all for Ombudsman services. OMB services are grossly underfunded, and so it is quite easy to spin that out without any carryover. Federal admin is just as it sounds. That is the administrative funds allocated for us here at the Area Agency on Aging to execute the contracts. As I mentioned, this year we had a few dollars also provided at the same time from State Fund for Senior Services. In our case, you can see the services line there of $25,773.63, along with State Fund for Senior Services admin of $2,863.74. Service, the SFSS, that's the State Fund for Senior Services, services are just that. They can be used across varying service lines, which give us the most flexibility. So that's great that we got a few extra dollars there. And then the admin is just that. It can only be spent within the admin area of what we do. We opted to add this to the annual survey process that we're required to do under the Older Americans Act. We here at the Area Agency on Aging about 3 years ago took on the full process so as to alleviate the administrative burden and the cost burden to our providers. So the funds that they receive can go more directly to services, and we've taken on the annual survey process in cost and volunteers and staff that manage that now. So that gave us a total carryover of $385,702.39. Jared, would you scroll to the next? So, like I mentioned, because these are funds come to us for redistribution by part, which does limit how we can distribute the funds. We also looked at spend down, current spend down across providers, and of course, for those providers who were eligible for funds within those specific parts. We also employed some strategy to make sure that if a fund, a requester or a provider gave us a range, that we would have the most flexibility even as we get later on in the end of this fiscal year, that we could reallocate those funds so as to maximize the spend down and get as close to zero as absolutely possible. So TSC stands for Teller Senior Coalition. We provided funding into their transportation as well as their assisted transportation, and a few dollars into their chore program. UCCS counseling program also received funds. You can see that those were split across State Fund for Senior Services, which again has the most flexibility, as well as Part E, which is strictly for caregiver services. Community dental services had a very large need, but what we did is we applied the balance available from the Part B, the most generic use of funds, to those so as to achieve a zero balance at the end of this process. Brothers Redevelopment for their Capable program, which is an evidence-based program, received this funding out of Part D. And primarily because of the Part D providers, they were the only ones who replied in time, but also could show that they could spend these funds down. Again, we want to ensure that in the future, even funds within these parts that are a little trickier to spend always come back to Region 4, and we will reallocate as we need to based on folks' needs. Silver Key Senior Services is the only C1 or congregate meal program within our entire system. And so they received the bulk of the C1 so as to ensure that we are spending down those dollars. They're actually using that for increasing their congregate meal delivery, but also some capital requests so as to maximize their meal sites for future use. And then the last two lines here you see, these are AAA caregiver respite vouchers. We applied the balance of the Part E funds because those are very directly calculated to specific clients that will be able to use those before the June 30th deadline. And then, as I mentioned, the State Fund for Senior Services admin dollars were applied to our annual survey process, which means that we have verifiable and confirmed ultimate usage of 100% of these fund totals. So that is our goal, is to always have less and less carryover. And we have been doing really well at that over the last couple years. The the emergency funds, the CARES Act dollars, kind of created a little bit of a hiccup in that process because those were prioritized during the emergency declaration. But now that we're back into receiving our funds through the specific parts, it is very important for us to manage this process as closely and as tightly as possible in order to reduce carryover funding. Our contract with the feds and the state do allow for a cap in carryover in the future. They will not be enacted this year due to the uncertainty of our state and federal funding process. And so we've been given a year's reprieve from that potential carryover cap. But our goal and our role, of course, as administrators of these funds is to make sure that these dollars get out into the community as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So with that, that completes this update for the carryover process. I do want to share that we have shared our process with you all as our board of directors with these contingency votes, and they are this process has been very well received by our state administrators and applauded as a way to maximize our efficiencies to get these dollars out to our community. So just wanted to pass along their thanks for you all being a part of making sure that our community get these funds as soon as possible. With that, completes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Okay, are there any questions? For those who are new, we do have a process where we allow the RAC to get these monies out as fast as possible, so we can always activate we're going to use it instead of lose it principles here. Make sure we get as much as we can out of every dollar. Okay, so other reports and minutes. We will go to the CDOT monthly update. Welcome, John.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to surprise everybody. Right. I am here. Thanks very much. John Hall with CDOT, North Program Engineer here in Colorado Springs. The active projects going on right now, of course, we have Powers and Airport Boulevard making really good progress. All the bridge girders are up. A lot of activity overnight this week with some closures, putting up basically the framing and stuff like that, the safety measures for the southern structure to get built. And on Friday night to Saturday morning, we'll be having the deck pour, the concrete pour for the northern of those structures, which, yes, am I not speaking close? I'm sorry. So the northern of those structures, which, if you're aware, that's going to be a diverging diamond interchange. So that's the left side of the road, but that'll be the eastbound direction. So I-25 Fillmore to Garden of the Gods is progressing well too. Here we've got a lot of the second phase of the southbound bridge is pretty much done. That deck pour occurred in the last month. You'll see some activity here as the weather warms up to finish paving all in that median, and that will allow us to shift northbound traffic onto that structure so that then we can open up where the current northbound is and rebuild that and the bridge for northbound. We have various signing, striping, and rumble strip projects going on. New construction projects for the Pikes Peak area is also going to be the 115 resurfacing from Nelson Boulevard to Brookside. So basically, right there from that main gate onto Fort Carson up to about I-25 is getting reconstructed, and 67D north of Woodland Park. Resurfacing and reconstructing of that, basically that first mile of 67 from 24. So I added a little bit to these slides today. I've been doing some personal just digging on data and trying to put together some information that I thought would be of interest to the group. I do want to say that this is John Hall QA data, so it doesn't necessarily link up perfectly with some of CDOT's OTIS and stuff. I still have to QA it. But things I found that were of interest is there are 180 state miles of state highways in PPACG, 680 through lane miles. If you do the math on that, that's about, if roughly the average state highway here in the Pikes Peak area council of governments area is a 4-lane highway. So it would take approximately 900 million tons of HMA to resurface all that with 2.5-inch resurfacing. And that would, at current costs of our projects, that would equate to about a $300 million worth of work. So again, I find that data I'm using to kind of prepare ourselves. We've gone through the long range transportation plan process, but we've also are looking forward at CDOT to the 10-year planning process and those funds. So that's just some data that I found of interest, and I thought you guys would find of interest, or you ladies and gentlemen would find of interest as well. So if we could advance to the next slide, real quick run through of the Central Front Range area projects. Of course, 9 and 285, the 9 Alma and 285 Grant chain up stations, and the US 50 resurfacing from Salida to Coaldale. So way out west, the western boundary there of Fremont County. Those projects are really just wrapping up. They just have a little bit of work to wrap them up here in the spring. New construction projects for Central Front Range. We have a resurfacing just west of Woodland Park that gets through Divide and through Florissant. US 285 way up around Bailey, around the Jefferson County line, is getting resurfaced, and various timber bridges on 24, both far west and east, and some other locations as well. Colorado 9, 67F, which is the between Cripple Creek and Divide, and even on 285 south of Fairplay. And again, in Central Front Range, there are some centerline rumble strip projects on Highway 924 west and 67 again between Cripple Creek and Divide. So just a little data as well on Central Front Range. Just a little under 500 state highway miles, a little over 1,000 through lane miles. So that means obviously the average facility in Central Front Range is a 2-lane facility, one in each direction. 1.5 million tons it would take to resurface those, and $500 million. So for me, the tidbit there is if you resurface a road approximately once every 10 years, I just basically told you that we need $80 million a year to do that. So.
Well, thank you for the good news.
Question.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm mic challenged sometimes. Highway 24 resurfacing, when do you expect that to begin? I don't remember what you said before.
Just west, the one just west of Woodland Park. There.
Yes.
Well, so a little bit slower. For example, the one north on 67 has really kicked off with some preliminary work, just as the weather warms up. I mean, I don't think we've gotten a set day yet from our contractor on it, but obviously in that area, we would expect it to kick off in June.
Okay. Thanks for your help.
Well, Go ahead, Mayor Dixon.
Just a general question. When you do your projects, say there's a intersection up in Green Mountain Falls that's going to be done in 2027, supposedly. And what I'm curious about, is there ways to potentially piggyback with your contractor if we have additional work that may need to be done, since they'd already be there?
That's a complicated question. I mean, in terms of linking, unless we were to link funds and design stuff together, I think it'd be challenging. So I'd probably have to kind of learn a little more about what you're saying. But the main way, since those are low bid projects, those are design bid build projects, would be to somehow link the funding. Similar to like we have Judge Orr Road that's in design, 24 and Judge Orr Road in the county. That has some MMOF funds, I believe. I mean, there's a combination of funds. There'll be IGAs to do that. That's the complex way of doing it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I didn't know if there's a way for us to say if we wanted to do an independent contract with the contract you selected, since they're already there.
Well, I don't know of any particular concern. If it meets your contracting rules, I don't think that it would violate anything in ours, but
yeah, we have very few contracting rules.
yeah, I mean, I don't, obviously we would be concerned just to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact our work, but I'm unaware of anything.
I was just curious.
There's not, you may not.
Actually, we'd probably have to go out for bid, because that is part of our stuff, but I was just curious if there was a way to link them.
Mayor LeKind.
Actually, I'd like to thank CDOT for a couple of things. I have nothing to complain about. One, the final signing of the legal review and the IGA so that we can proceed with the development of the intersection at 105 and Jackson Creek Parkway. I don't know if you knew about that, but also thank you for putting signs back on the interstate, letting people know where the town of Monument is. I don't know where they went, but they're back up. So thank you.
I'm not highly aware of those, but I am kind of, there's mostly our traffic unit, I think, in both of those situations. So, and our permits, or I should say our local agency unit that with the IGA. So I will definitely pass that on. Thank you, Mayor LeKind.
Councilmember Avila.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're in Colorado Springs are looking at a robust way to pick up trash and clean it, and we're not able to touch the state highways, right? And so, is there any effort to do cleanup on the highways that go through Colorado Springs? Because I know a lot of the trash trucks too. They leave a lot of debris, and there's just an enormous amount of trash. I can't tell your face what you're doing, but
what I can say about that is that yes, right. I'm pausing to come up with the best answer for you. I can tell you that, I mean, our maintenance resources are challenged to do stuff. We had some trash cleanup days, right, where even us engineers and all over the last few years got out and did trash pickup. I will just say that, especially with the fatalities on the western slope that we've had this year, there's a concern about repeating those activities. That, what happens if something kind of goes wrong. We have contracts with, I don't know the details of them. I'll just say various, and I believe it's corrections and stuff like that to help us with cleanup on the roads and stuff like that. I'd have to pass that on to our maintenance folks though, to gather a little more information. Those things certainly exist, but we're definitely challenged to get it out there, routinely enough, but with both our maintenance forces and those contracts to necessarily keep everything in great shape. But certainly right now, our maintenance forces, for example, are focused a little bit on just kind of making sure some of the signs got fixed recently with the space symposium and stuff like that going on this week, for example.
Yeah, and our hands are kind of tied because we're not allowed to get out there and do that.
Yeah,
so
I'll have to check in.
We could figure out a way to work together and clean up a lot of these areas, because it's not really great.
As with everything bureaucratic,
Yeah.
that is a challenge. We should be able to,
You're
we
gonna
should be able to
cut
overcome.
right through the bureaucracy.
I make an attempt to it. That's why they sent me in 2018 up to a project that a lot of people didn't like on the in this room, but because I like trying to eliminate bureaucracy, but I'll see what I can look into that. I mean, certainly agreements can be made to address that. It shouldn't be impossible. So
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Case.
I just want to piggyback on what Councilmember Avila has mentioned. I had a citizen call me about the extreme trash between 8th Street and 31st Street on Highway 24, also known as Cimarron. And I called Mayor Mobilotti and had a conversation with him about it and was invited to his task force meeting. And so his comment to me was the same thing Councilmember Avila just mentioned, was that they're not allowed to get on to do anything on those right of ways through there or any other I-25 or any other. And so for me, that's not a good answer. And to find a way to do that, because it is excessive and extreme. It's really bad. And so a way, and I would be happy to visit with whomever you might suggest I talk to with CDOT to make those arrangements and share that with Councilmember Avila and Mayor Mobilotti, because I know it affects, that's a gateway, one of 3 roads west to our beautiful Colorado. And so I would love to get involved in finding a way to work together to make that happen. I know around Woodland Park, we do a cleanup every spring and fall, and we get great reaction and people involved in that. And I know that we pick up the highway when we're doing that. So we may be breaking the rules, but I venture to say we don't care because we're cleaning it up, because it really gets tacky. And for many various reasons, it's not always intentional littering. So if you could steer me or ask someone to steer me in the right direction to have that conversation, I would sure appreciate that.
I will.
Thank you, Madam.
I will seek to. Well, I will definitely be able to find some context and some information about it. I'll seek to see even if I can assist in streamlining that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you, John. Oh, one more question from Mayor Thompson.
When I was getting on the freeway this morning at exit 128, I was so excited to see a big sign that said sweeping activities ahead. And I know that sounds really minor, but can't tell you the last time they swept Highway 85 through the south end of town. We literally had trees growing in them last year. We were going to turn into the Arbor Day count. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to getting home and seeing a lot of that sand out of the roadway. So and we break the law there too, and a lot of our citizens pick up stuff along Highway 85, but hey, it's on the record, right? Citizens, I didn't say city, I said citizens. Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
I'll give the Statewide Transportation Advisory Committee report real quick because now it's bad news. Just given the numbers he's given us, the state legislature cut $65 million in faster funds from the CDOT budget. That was from a bill in 2010. In 2018, there was a multimodal option fund, which is not a dedicated enterprise fund. This one surprised me. They also pulled the money from that back into the state general fund. So I think CDOT was looking at maybe 80 million in funding cuts. It was pretty serious. I can't remember how much the multimodal was, but I questioned the brains behind the operation up there, Jeff Sudemeyer, pretty closely on that, because we didn't want our enterprise funds being used for general fund information. And so they are doing the 2050 transportation plan. We should be getting some notices on that. That will have surveys. It's very useful. Again, the more people you get to participate in a survey, the better the survey is. So as those are announced, I'm sure that Andy will get them out to everybody and we can get them out to our communities. And now we'll go to the Front Range Passenger Rail update.
Well, thank you. I don't have any more to update from the last meeting because everything going on at the state, they're just watching the different buckets of money, the CTIO, Managed Lane Road, CDOT, all of that very complicated web that goes into Front Range Passenger Rail. So there really isn't an update. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen. They're working with the governor's office to keep it funded until, again, if they think they can go to the ballot in 2026. And so we're continuing to meet. Sharon was on the last call and heard probably very much the same thing. Not a new update, but just keeping the train on the tracks.
Or getting it on the tracks. All right, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real briefly, 3 items. Despite what we've all been hearing and talking about with the state budget, was really surprised that we got our regional grant navigator position, contract position, approved for 1 more year. We've got the best grant navigator in the state with Karen Rowe. She was here earlier, but had to step out. But pleasantly surprised. So if you see the governor or OEDIT or DOLA, thank them for their support and keeping the program going. And please use her services to go after grants that are out there. Secondly, just want to mention that on the May agenda, we'll have an item around executive committee positions with Councilmember Tellerico coming off the executive committee. We'll need a second vice chair, so that will be on the agenda for the May meeting. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I know we sent out some information about that after the workshop on Friday around what's in the bylaws that describes our process and so forth. No need for a nominating committee per se, but just be ready to come at the May meeting and make nominations. Okay. So just wanted to let you know about that. And then finally, want to thank Jared and the team for putting together the annual report that you all have. And we'll be getting this out far and wide, and just a lot of great accomplishments from last year, and identifies our 25 goals for 2025 this year that we aim to accomplish. And I think we're well on our way already. But yes, but that was catchy. Yep. Yes. Hold us accountable for it. Yes. Good. Sherry wanted to make one brief announcement, art related, I think. Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you, board. Our new artist up for this month is Heidi Ducharme. She paints mostly from around Colorado, and she mostly paints in acrylics. There is a picture of some cows on the other side, so make sure you check those out, but mostly she does floral scenes, and there are also a couple of her portraits in the front as well. So thank you.
Okay. We are very close to ending. Would anyone like to have a member entity announcement? Okay, go ahead, Mayor Thompson.
Okay, couple things. I have a town hall meeting Saturday the 12th at 9 a.m. with Senator Snyder at the Fountain Library. Open to anybody in the public. And then DEA is doing another Take Back Drug Day. I don't know where it is in your areas, but I'm sure you can go on the public health and find it out, or maybe Andy can send it out to us. I know in Fountain, it's April 26th is the actual day. It's at the Fountain Library, and then Whiteville Parks and Recreation and Security are drop-off places. So, so bring your, like we found a bottle of aspirin 2017, it expired, and that's a really good place to drop it off. And then Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management is doing a big survey. And if there's a way, maybe we can get that link sent out to people so that we can get a lot of people participating in that. They set out or you can go to the Channel 13, the Road Warrior guy, and see his report. They were saying not a lot of people participated in it when they did it 5 years ago. And I think, well, we can change that. So, and then Communities That Care has a tab group, teen group, and I suggested maybe they contact DriveSmart about a presentation they have together.
Good.
On safe driving. So that's it. Thank you.
Mayor Dixon.
Mayor Thompson, was that the meeting on May 5th for the PPROEM?
I was referring to a survey that they have out there.
Oh,
they're
okay.
trying to do a community survey.
Okay, never mind.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Stone.
It's not really an event, but it kind of is an event for us in Teller County. But just wanted to let everybody know that Teller County has chosen a contractor and will be breaking ground on our new County Central Service Center, which will be located in Divide, just off of Highway 67 and 24. And it's a pretty big deal for us because it's going to give us the opportunity to get out of paying rent for a lot of our departments around the county and centrally locate them in one spot. And we chose they ended up with the same contractor that Park County hired to do their center about 5-6 years ago. So Anyway, we're real excited about that.
Okay, if there are no further announcements, oh, go ahead, Councilmember.
I really
Avila.
don't have an announcement. Well, this is my last meeting and it's been great. But I would like to see if you'd indulge me, and I'd like to hear from John Leosadas if he would do a Johnism. And he's really been good on that throughout the years. And John, do you have anything very clever? You didn't know I was going to put you on the spot. I didn't either, but I thought about it.
No. Yeah, they're just organic. Yeah, they have to come. They can't be just forced.
So is Yolanda the salad or the dessert?
What's that?
Is Yolanda the salad or the dessert?
I'd like to decline the question on the grounds the answer may tend to incriminate me. Wait,
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure, and I'm sorry I don't have anything. If someone could say something kind of dumb, I can make fun of it, but unfortunately we're short on that right now.
Oh, I say a lot of dumb things. Come on.
No, that'd be great. So yeah.
Well,
anyway. And mink ties and
unicorns and things.
Oh, unicorns.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Well,
Anyway, John, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, you've been so great in knowing like transportation inside and out. Really answered a lot of questions for me, and just really appreciated you and your funny little Johnisms.
It's been my pleasure, and again, I apologize. I'm at a loss, but
all right.
Yeah, just remember in the immortal words of Buckaroo Banzai, no matter where you go, there you are.
We just need to give you a report because, they just kind of tend to happen organically as you're presenting. So,
yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned.